Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 50 Shades of Tay. I'm Taylor Gonzalez, and today I have a very special guest with me. One of my favorite shows of the entire year was Agatha All Along. And if you watch this show, you know how incredible all of the costumes were throughout the different eras, the different trials. And I am so excited because I have the costume designer, Daniel Selon, here today. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm so great. It's so great to be here and chat with you about this. I'm so glad that you like the show, and I want to answer all your questions.
Oh, thank you so much. I just could not believe the attention to detail you put into every single costume. And even watching that special that Marvel just put out on their YouTube channel the other day, there were so many things that I didn't notice the first watch through that I'm so excited to be able to take a closer look at through my second watch through. And just incredible, incredible costumes for every single character from Agatha all the way to the Salem 7. I just could not believe how much thought and effort you put into all of these costumes.
Thank you so much for noticing and for caring. It means everything, you know? It's like we work so hard and we put lots of effort and details into these costumes, and you just don't know if people will see it, you
Mhm.
know? It's always a gamble a little bit. Like, are they gonna see it? Are they gonna care? I guess is the bigger question. And the answer is yes. They
Mhm.
do care and they have seen it, and everybody is so passionate about these costumes and these characters. I just couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I just was blown away because each episode, for people who have seen it and who haven't seen it, there's different themes, different eras, different trials that the witches go through, and so the costumes are always changing, always evolving, and it's just like every episode, I feel like you outdid yourself, and I just could not get over it, and I loved the costume so much. I knew I had to get you on the show and talk with you because I love speaking with costume designers, and these costumes literally my favorite costumes of the year.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Taylor. That's so sweet. That means so much, truly.
Oh, well, I am glad because I want to make sure someone says it to you in case you haven't heard it yet because you deserve all the praise for this. And I know when you sign on to a project like this, you're probably thinking like, oh, I'm so lucky to get to, do this. But also in return, Marvel's so lucky that they had someone who cared so much to
Mm.
put all this effort and time and all these little details that other people wouldn't even have thought to include. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Yeah, I do feel super fortunate. I am so grateful to have been given the gift of this show to express myself, and really share my ideas and thoughts for these characters. And yeah, it was a total dream job as a costume designer because of the breadth of what was required and design and all the genres and the periods. It's just, it doesn't really, for me and what I like to do and the kinds of characters I like, it doesn't really get better than this. In as far as like magical realism and women and witches and
Yeah.
all of it.
Oh my gosh, so cool. Before we get into talking about all of your gorgeous costumes, I had the privilege of interviewing one of the directors of the show, Rachel Goldberg, a week ago. And I asked her this question, and I thought it was really fun. So I wanted to ask you as well. If you found yourself on the Witch's Road and you had to complete one of these trials, which trial do you think you would be best at?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Nobody's asked me that. Like of the trials that are in the show.
Mhm.
Hmm. Wow. I definitely wouldn't be the potions because I think I would have messed that up in the allotted amount of time. We all would
Mhm.
have died. I think I like I really love the castle tower and Lilia's, episode with the tarot and the swords and everything. Like there is something um kind of extreme, about that I feel like sometimes when the stakes are high,
Mhm.
I really can pull it out and make it happen. And so I feel like maybe I would have excelled in there, hopefully not getting skewered.
Gosh, that's funny because that's the same task that Rachel picked as well.
No
She picked the same
way.
trial.
Really? Oh, that's so funny. I love her.
So there you go. You guys could work together on some tarot cards before you get struck by a knife. That episode was incredible, by the way. Like everything from the knives falling, which we see in the behind the scenes, there's real knives coming, and the ceiling was lowered. It's just crazy the amount of, details and effort that went into putting the show together.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the production design was absolutely wild, and the sets that they built were bonkers. I mean, just these fully immersive spaces that were gorgeous,
Mhm.
really, really beautiful, and just so easy to inhabit them. Put our characters in there that we had really fully fleshed out, and for the actors to just fill it.
Mhm.
It's beautiful to watch.
So one thing I was really curious about was because you had to come up with so many costumes for so many different characters, how much time did you have from when you first signed on to the project to when cameras started rolling?
Yeah, well, it's a good question because it's different for every project. And this one in particular, I was hired like in March or April of like 2022. And then I started on it in August of 22. And then we basically had about 5 months of prep from the time that when I first started, and then when we started shooting in Atlanta. So, which is a lot of time. That's a long prep. That's about the same as like a feature Marvel film.
Mhm.
Um, and so it really gave us the space that we needed to go deep on the character design and also on the actual way we were going to construct things. And I knew that was going to be important for this show. And so I built my team with a workroom in Los Angeles and a workroom in
Oh,
Atlanta.
wow.
And each workroom was doing different characters. And then eventually the LA workroom was finished and we moved everything over to Atlanta, and we had them, they were with us the whole time until we finished shooting in like June of 23. Um,
Oh,
so it's a long, period. And there's just a ton of work. I had about 50 people in my department.
oh my gosh, that's incredible. We have to talk about the Salem Seven because I loved the look and the design of them and how each of them had their own animal that they were themed after, and just like the way they moved in unison. Everything about them was so creepy and so fun. And I just loved seeing them on screen. Can you talk a little bit about how you brought the Salem Seven to life?
Yeah. They were written pretty clearly in my mind, initially in Jack's outline, uh, in that they were these really scary creatures. I think that we always knew that they would bring the horror element or the sort of real scary danger, and in that they're endlessly chasing Agatha. And so I wanted to make sure that we kind of went to those dark and sharp angular places with the look of it, and the way that they felt needed to be sort of spooky and arresting. And so it was one of my assistant designers, Maddie Carroll, put together some really beautiful research of dance troops, because we were talking about like we knew they wanted to sort of like be able to contort their bodies, and the feeling that you experience when you see someone um, you know manipulating their body in what seems like maybe an unnatural position or way. And that like, ooh, that feeling is what we wanted to capture. And so we looked at like Martha Graham, and they're wearing these like jersey fabrics that stretch, and sort of like they're getting like elbows and knees, and sort of making all these weird shapes with their bodies. And so I really wanted to capture that. And then we had some research of these women had this traditional garb in the Azores, which is these like islands off of Portugal. Um, and they, have these like they're wearing like black wool that's like draped up and over their head, and they like belt it around their waist. So they're sort of in these like two halves and these long skirts. And we really were struck by that silhouette and thought, oh, there's something here. Let's come up with something there. Jack and Mary wanted there to be a sort of transformative element to them, that we would see them um, go from one state to another state, because they are these sort of anamorphous, like human animal creatures that transform. And so we wanted the costumes to also do that. Um, and so we created this hood that you see like when they first show up, outside of Agatha's house, and Billy's like out there, holding Senior Scratchy, and he's like sees them all as a group, and they gather. They're wearing their hoods, which is actually it's the top layer of their skirt that folds up like this and sort of origami folds up on top and has all these hidden magnets so that they're inside this like, hollow of a tree kind of thing and they can do their creepy thing. And then we had choreographed these moments where they would sort of burst out of it and the hood layer falls down and becomes the rest of the skirt. So those moments didn't make it into the show in their entirety. So you'd see them do it as a group. You see the owl do it a little bit in
Mhm.
episode 105, when she's fighting Billy in the gully. But yeah, I mean, I knew that we wanted to have masks. I knew that they were going to be in all black, tonal palette, so just black on black on black. So I knew that we would lean into textures to tell the story, tactily. And they were so fun. And they really kind of came together like this. Like everybody was like, "Oh, okay, yeah. I get it. Okay, creepy like this. Okay, yes. These masks. Okay, yes, and like I had my dear friend Thomas and Ainsley are my specialty fabricators, and had the animal faces, and I would like draw over the animal face to kind of come up with like the shape language of what elements of the animal's face we needed to make sure that we nailed, so that you would understand it was a coyote versus a fox or a rat versus the owl. And then, yeah, they came up with these wire armatures, and then they wrapped and wove all these, really crazy, like thick sort of yarns and sinew and cotton, like waxed cotton threads, to create all these different, the little knots and things like it's kind of spider webby, a little bit, like a talisman, kind of something that felt ancient and like maybe it contained a hex or something, trapping them in there. But we also needed to see their eyes. That was also.
Such cool character designs. And it's funny because I asked Rachel also, I was like, if there was a character that you could do like a spin-off series from Agatha, like who she would want to do. And she mentioned doing the Salem 7, maybe like a prequel series of them. I was like, man, I would love to see more of them and those designs and yeah, just like the way they move and everything. I just think they're so cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that idea. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's put that out there in the world because I think especially like you know how Disney and Marvel did the Werewolf by Night kind of the
Mhm.
one shot for Halloween a couple years ago. I feel like a Salem 7, just like a special presentation would be perfect.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
Yeah, there we go. We'll just put that out there in the universe and see what happens.
Cool.
So when you get the cast list and you see Kathryn Hahn, Patti LuPone, Joe Locke, the list goes on and on of all these, icons who in real life also are very fashionable and have their own taste and their own looks that they're known for. How much of their personal style played into the costumes that you designed for the characters?
Well, in this show in particular, the characters are so well drawn. They're so detailed, and a lot of the information is in the scripts.
Mhm.
And so, and I would say that, this cast they are my coven. They are just the best, some of the best humans and the greatest actors and comedians. And every single one of them came to the table like this, just like open, like what do you want to do, what are we doing here, like I will do anything. And so with maybe a contemporary show, though, the actors personal tastes and styles come into play a little bit more, but here it was so character driven that it was a little bit more of like I'm going to take all of myself off and we're going to put all of this character on.
Mhm.
But those conversations are my favorite, sitting down with the actor and saying, here's what Jack and Mary and I have been talking about. Here's some reference images. Here's what I think the silhouette needs to be. What do you think?
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts and feelings about this character that you're going to play? How do you want to feel? How do you want to be perceived by the other characters in this scenario or that scenario? Or how do you want the audience to interpret your character when they first meet you?
Mhm.
These are the questions that I ask. And if they don't have the answer, then it's my job to sort of bring something to the table that they can use as a vehicle physically, to answer that question on camera. Um, but that's where I begin.
Oh, very nice. So I also noticed while watching the making of that was put on YouTube the other day, you were on set for a lot of this series. Is that something that is normal for you, or is that something that was special specifically to working on Agatha, where you were so heavily involved with the day-to-day filming of the show?
Well, personally, the way that I like to work, I am very involved in what happens on set. Not every costume designer is like that, but with a show like this where, everything is made from scratch and they're characters that we're completely imagining from nothing, uh, I think it's important. You just really have to be there because you're establishing a new costume or a new functionality of the costume depending on the action. And yeah, it's just I'm like, I guess another way to say this is that I'm a crazy helicopter parent. And like I need to be there. And I also just like you work so hard to create these costumes and these characters, and then if you don't hang out on set, you're kind of not really getting to watch the game get played out, you know? So I like to be there, and I like it's where, anecdotes happen and the relationships are forged in fire. It's just like it's I love being on set. Yeah, it's important to me.
Yeah, no, that's great because I really feel like it does add to, the whole world building and the costuming and everything, just being there on set. I would be there, I'd be the first person there and I'd be the last person to leave, especially with the set like that where everything was physical and practical. It's just so incredible to see the leaves and, the lights and everything that they put together to bring the Witch's Road to life. It blew me away.
Yeah, it's funny about the road set. There was all these it was huge, right? And there was all these pathways, and they had really engineered it so that they could move whole sort of segments of the forest sort of over a little bit to close off a path this way and open up a new path, and sort of depending on where the camera was placed, it would look like a totally different part of the forest. Very, very creative engineering. Um, and so it created all these, and the whole set was kind of elevated a bit. So there was a lot of negative space under each of the knobby areas and inside the trees and stuff like that. So whenever we would roll for the take, all the crew members would sort of scurry away into these hidey holes, like under the trees and behind a rock, and like we were just all right there hiding inside like that big glowing tree that has the big glowing roots. There was like a basically like a cavern in there that a lot of equipment would be stored, and we would all be packed in there, like being super quiet during the take.
Oh, that is so fun. I love hearing stuff like that. Kathryn Hahn is honestly like one of my favorite actresses of all time. I think every single project she's in, she's the highlight for me. Like I love her and I can't wait to see what she does next. But can you talk a little bit about the collaboration process with Kathryn specifically when designing all these costumes for Agatha?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Catherine she is just as special as you feel her to be. She's a magical human being. We call her National Treasure Kathryn Hahn.
Oh,
That's how we refer to her. And she and I really we feel like together that we kind of grew up together on WandaVision and this show. That like we were really ushered into this world on those two projects, and um created this character together. On WandaVision, I was the assistant designer with Maya Rubeo, who's incredible. And we had an amazing time creating that show. And I will never forget the first fitting when Catherine came in and we were trying on just shapes on her and talking about like where we were going to go with the character. And she had some very organic ideas about the character, about like sort of much more in line with like the crone sort of concept of like rooted in the earth and barefoot and long hair and twigs in her hair, and kind of like I remember like taking notes and like trying to make sure that she felt heard on
mm,
what she felt the character would be, all the while knowing like what had been happening in design meetings and with the studio, and where the character was heading was obviously all of the period looks that are in WandaVision, but then her super witch look at the end, the iconic pleated dress. It's like, well, I don't that's not exactly what she's describing, but like this is the conversation, this is how it happens as we get together and we put our ideas together and say like, where does the character lie?
mm.
And so it was so cool to then get to step into the designer position on Agatha and say, okay, well, here's what we did with your character previously, and we did that together, and now let's hold hands again and let's go into the future, down the road. And um, I don't know. She lights me up. I just am, I'm like, I am flying high after fittings with Kathryn because she steps in and she feels it fully right away and she explores it and she embodies it exactly as she does on camera. She just drops right in and there's very little time where she has to kind of think about it. She just feels. And that's why I think she's such a brilliant actor. She's got her instincts are spot on and she's got depth and timing and all of it so she can be dramatic and insanely funny and scary and manipulative and all the things that Agatha is. She's able to use all these different tools to capture all the facets of this character, and I felt so just grateful, truly grateful to be able to contribute to the her journey and give her cool things to wear and play with.
That's so great. And when you're number one on the call sheet, you really do set the tone for how everyone's day is going to be. You're on a set, all day. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone, you do the same scene over and over, takes of the same thing, say the same line. So if you're not in a good mood and you're not, there to have fun and stuff, it can be a very long, draining day. But when you have someone like Kathryn, who I've seen, all the behind the scenes stuff, she's having fun in between takes. She's cheering on other people. She just seems like a really good leader. And like, I don't know. I feel like she really cultivated like a place where people could have fun and be themselves. And that's just something that, makes me very happy to hear that she's, everything that you would hope she would be.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's an incredible leader and I think the rest of the cast also look to her to see how deep are we going?
Mm,
How much effort are we putting in to this? And she goes all the way in and beyond. So
mm,
it's like everyone's like, well, that's the bar, here we are. And I would say that Jack Schaefer is the same. She is truly that omniscient creator who has the full scope of the story and the concept and all of it in her mind, and she um, is incredibly collaborative
mm.
and so assured in what she knows that she's able to sort of step back and say, well, what do you think? Like, what should it be? Like, what do you want to tell me about this thing? What can you do? And um, that kind of invitation to create and to add to the conversation is, I mean, it's so special. And she does it with such aplomb that I will follow her to the end of the earth.
Oh, that is wonderful to hear. So Joe Locke's Wiccan costume, I think, is like my favorite superhero costume I've ever seen on screen because
Mm,
I have loved Wiccan ever since he was introduced in the comics. And that's something I don't know. I don't know that when the MCU started, like that was ever anything that I thought we would see. I didn't think we would see, an openly gay superhero who has a boyfriend, and I, it just didn't ever. I didn't ever think we would get that.
yeah.
So it was like really emotional to me to get to see that on screen. So number one, thank you for bringing, helping, be a part of that to bring that to life. But from the ruins on his suit to the combination of, Wanda's and Vision's cape, uh, his costume is like incredibly detailed. Can you talk a little bit about the process of bringing him from the page of our comics to our screens at home?
Yeah. I'm so glad that you connect with the character because I do too. And I think that's why I just put so much love and depth into him because I just knew it was something very special that we were doing was representing this character properly and representing a queer person and what it is to be gay and in this space in the context of the world of the MCU. And so yeah, I mean, I we designed Wiccan always with Billy, his road look in mind. So we really designed both at the same time, knowing that there would be this trajectory and that like elements that existed as Billy the teen on the road with like the rips in his jeans and the, the sort of circular belt buckle and his the hoodie and the his earrings, like all of the things that were established as Billy the Teen would level up and sort of pass through this superhero transformative moment to then be revealed as more when he becomes Wiccan. And it was also important that we our goal in the design was to not have him just show up in a rubber superhero suit, because when that happens, sometimes you're a little bit like, where did all that come from? Like, what
Right.
is all of that stuff? Like, where did you get all that? Like, and so it was very important that this reveal be somewhat of a hybrid. And because that also felt right for the character, that he is still understanding his identity and it's sort of his first expression of himself as Wiccan, but not the last.
Mm.
And so it gives us somewhere to go in the future as well. Not, because like, of course I want to design his rubber super suit, it's like, and I want to go so crazy on it.
Right.
But this just felt like it kept him grounded and rooted in a reality that was a hinge pin of the success of this show was grounding everything, all the choices in reality.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I cannot get enough of that suit. It's so cool and it's beyond anything that I could have ever hoped for. So yeah,
Mm,
thank you so much for being
so
a part of
glad.
bringing him to everyone. And I really hope that, now that he's in a Disney Plus show that everyone's watching, I hope people go out and buy the comics and read about his character because it's such an awesome character.
Yes, there's
But
so much more story to tell.
yes, exactly. I can't wait to see when and where he pops up next. And Joe Locke, honestly, I love Joe Locke. I am obsessed with Heartstopper. So when I heard he was cast in this role, I was like, they perfectly cast him. I cannot believe that it worked out the way that it did.
Yeah, truly, truly, like a kismet sort of, finding of the right person, the right
Mm.
time in their life, and he just has embraced it with so much excitement and beauty, and he's such a brilliant young actor. Like, I mean, he's really got so much that I think we're gonna get from him as he goes on in his career. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I could talk with you all day about all these incredible costumes from Kathryn Hahn's beautifully detailed coat to Joe Locke's Maleficent costume, which we didn't even get a chance to talk about. That costume like blew me away as well. But I wanted to ask you, is there one costume in particular out of all the costumes you did for the show that you're most proud of?
It's such a hard question to answer, but because there are so many that I love, but I will choose one because it really kind of speaks to my soul, and that is Lady Death. When Aubrey finally reveals her true form, and we get to see it in the backyard battle, and she's up on the roof and all of that, the creation of that costume like was a really wonderful and pleasurable journey of working with this wonderful maker Adrian Martinez here in Los Angeles, who was on my team. She just has this really intuitive sense of creating something, something organic with all these different materials, and um the concept, working my illustrator Xander Smith was the one who drew her illustration, and he is a brilliant three-dimensional like sculptor, 3D sculptor and digital sculptor. So he sculpted the crown, and that was like me and him like staring at the screen. I was like, make it more pointy here and make it twist into itself here, and that, just all of that. And then Aubrey's, super beautiful embodiment of it, and her sardonic, humor always present. And, just like the combination of all those things came together in a way that from every angle, I'm proud of it.
Oh, yeah, I loved her costume, and I was like thrilled when I saw she was cast in this because I am obsessed with her. Like from Emily the Criminal. I don't know if you've seen Emily the Criminal.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
like one of
Great.
the craziest movies ever,
So
too.
crazy. Yeah.
My Old Ass, which just came out. Every performance she turns in is just like my favorite performance of hers. So when I saw she was joining this as well, I was like, they're getting all my favorite people and putting them in one show, and I could not believe it.
I know. Well, we couldn't either. It was like the whole experience was like, it was like pinch me.
Yeah.
Like, is this really happening? Are we really doing this? Is this really are we really being allowed to do this? Was kind of the feeling. And here we are. We got it all out. Everybody's seen it and they love it. And I'm just like, ah, I'm so happy.
I am so glad. Do you happen to know where the costumes are now? And please don't say a warehouse.
Okay, not
No.
in a warehouse. I mean, they are, there's a number of each costume, right?
Mhm.
That's how we have to build, we have to make multiples so that we can do all the things they need to do while we're shooting it. So those, the show has done so much PR and traveling around and had premieres all over the
Yep.
world that they travel a bunch of them around and set them up and do these installations. So they're really getting some airline miles in, which is cool. And I couldn't be happier about that because it's just nice to have the real garments go out into the world so people can
Yeah.
kind of get up close to them and see them. But then they will go to the warehouse.
I'm hoping that like the El Capitan or even FIDM put together an exhibit and we get to like walk through there because FIDM does an amazing exhibit every year for the Oscars. And it's like my favorite thing because it's one thing to see them on screen, but to be able to get up close and see the beading and to see, the stitching and all the buttons and everything, it's just like it blows me away. So I'm hoping something like that because I haven't seen any of them in person yet, but I'm like dying to be able to see all the details for myself.
Well, you should petition FITM and tell them that you want to see that. That would be
Yeah,
so
oh my
cool.
God, I would love to see these costumes. But Daniel, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join me and for answering all my questions. This show really means a lot to me. And I'll tell you the same thing I told Rachel. This is definitely a show that we need right now that features, such great representation for women and the LGBTQ community. So thank you for being part of something, number one, so special, and number two, that we really need right now. And I
Yes.
just hope you know how appreciated the show is and how appreciated all of your hard work and effort and attention to detail is. And for people who aren't following you on Instagram, you put out the coolest behind the scenes stuff.
Oh,
So where
thank
would be
you.
a good place for people to follow you and check out all the like behind the scenes posts you put out?
Yeah, yeah. I've been having such a good time sharing some deep dives on each of the costumes on my Instagram. So you can follow me at Daniel Salon, just all one word.
Perfect. And I will put the link to your Instagram in the description of this video so everyone can go follow you and see all your cool
Oh,
behind the scenes
yes.
posts. But
Awesome.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining me. It was so much fun getting to meet you and getting to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Taylor. It was such a pleasure. Thanks for
Thank
making
you.
it happen.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to see your next project. Whatever you work on next, I'm
Awesome.
there. So
Thank
I
you.
cannot wait.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.